It's the original movie is one of my favorites of all time. So, how did you guys approach this? I mean, you could either do what they were doing or kind of do your own thing. From what I heard, you're kind of doing your own thing and using that as kind of like the springboard.
Yep.
That's exactly right. When we sat down with Atlas and made the original film, they had been trying to turn it into a TV series for a long time, and our initial instinct was don't do it, because we were huge fans of the movie. And then when we started to really dig into it and go back and read David and Jenna Peoples' original script and really look at the thriller aspect of what is really a whodunit, this conspiracy, we're like, there is a way to do this as a serialized, gritty time travel show that's very different from the movie in ways that it's not the Terry Gilliam sort of dissertation on
sanity.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do the movie again. There's no way, and it's a finite story. It's closed off, closed ended, and there's just even if we remade that into the pilot, we have nowhere to go. So we had to open up that story and that world and tell it in a different way, and we made some key changes to the mythology and the characters.
And we get to spend a lot in the movie that you don't really spend a lot of time in that future, and in the series you will. We really open up the post-apocalypse and see and really actually dig into the story of our main character Cole. In the movie, he's sort of plucked out of this prison, and you're not really sure why he's there. And while we have a similar setup here, his backstory and his arc is pivotal to the redemption story that we're trying to tell in the series.
Do you find that with a situation like this, getting started, that it's almost like a no-win situation in the sense of you don't want to take out all the elements that people like about 12 Monkeys because you want there to be some continuity for them to watch, but at the same time, what elements do you keep and what elements do you get rid of?
You keep what works for the story. I mean, once we started turning this into a TV series, we had to say, what makes story, what makes these characters somebody that you want to tune in each week to see. And that's really the guide. I mean, there's not a formula that you can sit down and say, I don't want to take that. There's stuff that we loved about the movie. One of the coolest things about the movie is that you can't change time. That he's only going back to observe.
Right.
And that's a great bit of mythology, and it's one of my favorite bits in time travel fiction.
You can't do it in a long-running television time travel serialized show. I mean, you could. I just don't think it's as satisfying as the stakes are significantly higher. If you can make a change to time and history that could be devastating. It could be worse than the disaster you're trying to save.
So what are the stakes as far as the series, if you don't mind, besides that?
What are the stakes? Well, the stakes are the lives. There's two aspects. There's emotional stakes. For one, the main character, his mission is out to save the lives of 7 billion people, to stop this plague. But what you'll quickly realize by episode 1 and 2 is that in order to survive in this apocalypse, he was sort of an orphan in the apocalypse when what was going to happen. He had to do these horrible things to survive, and he's really about saving himself. If he changes history, if he changes time, he'll have undone roughly 30 years of pretty horrible living.
And because you can change time, the question we're going to ask is, it doesn't mean you should. And 7 billion people died, but for everybody in 2043, which is our future, that's history for them. Just like 6 million or 12 million people died in World War II, that's our history. It doesn't mean we should go back and change it and erase the entire baby boomer generation.
It's very likely.
Which is what you would do.
None of us would be here right now if we did that.
Yeah.
But it would be an absolutely noble thing to do.
Yeah, saving 12 billion people is a noble thing to do. It's a right thing to do.
So there's a lot of... We explore all the consequences and different points of view of time.
Because it's time travel, are you choosing to tell this in a linear fashion, or as a standalone?
We are definitely not.
Are you jumping around?
Well, I mean, you'll see in the pilot right away that we're doing some non-linear stuff. There are people who have met each other in timelines yet that the other person hasn't done because they haven't gone back to meet that person yet, and we do that throughout the first season, and we'll continue to do that throughout the series. We just think that audiences are sophisticated and smart enough now. They've been raised on Back to the Future and Doctor Who and Star Trek that they can take these. They can understand the fragmented timeline and I think enjoy putting that puzzle together. Especially for binge watchers will love this because they'll be immediately set up payoff.
And it's not just the time travel we're playing with, but I mean, creatively, narratively, we're doing some difficult stuff. So not difficult, but like ambitious stuff. So we're trying to tell stories in a way that you're getting Cole's backstory, so there's flashbacks, and you're seeing some alternate paths that maybe could or could not be taken, and things like that. So I think it's pretty ambitious, but I think people are going to be drawn into it. It's the kind of thing that appeals to me as a storyteller, as an audience member.
And we have an incredible cast that can support this. Aaron Stanford, who we worked with on Nikita, plays Cole, and he's your non-traditional hero in every way, but the emotion and sort of hurt and pain that he brings into it,
and then intensity
is phenomenal. And then there's Amanda Schull, who's brilliant as his confidant, and then we have Emily Hampshire, who's here, who plays the Brad Pitt character. Who now has been reunited to play Jennifer Goines. Then we were absolutely ecstatic about a German actor, Barbara Sukowa, who from the Fassbender films and Lola, has come on, and she's the scientist behind the time travel project, and she's sort of like the Adama of time travel in our show, and she's phenomenal.
She's phenomenal. And then we have Kirk Acevedo as well has come on the show, and I think people are going to be pretty blown away by him. It's a side of him that you haven't seen. That it's a role that he hasn't really played, I think. And he's phenomenal. So all of them together, it's been an amazing
quite an
thing
ensemble.
to watch.
It really is.
There's more than one time on set where a scene has played out, and then it's all silent, and the crew just goes, "Wow."
Yeah. It's,
in the pilot, we didn't see a lot of Kirk, and even Noah. We saw some, but when are their stories going to pick up?
Right at the top of episode 2. Right at the top, you'll immediately come to know who Kirk is, and now we start spending more time in the future in the second episode. But the pilot is sort of this freight train. It's like a teaser, and then by episode 2, it's like okay, now here we go. So both of those characters play.
Yeah.
You said in episode 2 you're going to be spending a lot more time in the future. Are you going to be playing around with different periods of time in the past? Like, are we going to see Cole going like back to World War I and all that?
Well,
stuff?
we don't jump around just for the sake of it. He doesn't go back in time and like punch out Hitler. It has to work with the emotion and the story of our conspiracy. But he's jumping around. Every episode has big time travel twists, and he definitely jumps around with different eras.
Yeah.
Do I understand correctly, though, that this is more than one season, right? So
we've only been picked up for one season. But
unless you know something we
don't.
That'd be great.
No, but
for the plot, I mean, I was wondering if he finds out who set the virus at the end of the season, or will that stretch like Lost, and then it's all a dream after 5 seasons?
Yes. The answer is stay tuned. That is, there's lots of twists and turns and zigs and zags coming about all that.
What you will find out at the end of the first season is that the plague and the virus is not the worst thing to happen to humanity. Something else was.
Wow, just dropping that bomb without checking with me.
Well, you can rebut that if you want.
It's true. It is true. The plague is just the beginning of the conspiracy. Now we have to stop. I'm serious.
Okay.
Is it difficult on these kind of shows when you've got time travel and you're trying to figure out continuity in the way your storylines are going, that to sort of keep yourselves honest? Like somebody could come in with a perfect script and somebody else goes, I hate to tell you, but because we set this up in episode 4, we can't actually do this. So
absolutely,
it's very hard to keep some things from unraveling.
The writers, all of us the entire writing staff has to work collaboratively because of telling those stories out of order, and we need to be in constant communication, like right down to shooting, to post-production, you have to really be on top of those story points that come to you.
And certain things we get wrong and we have to fix, and making sure it's a tight ship.
How difficult was it to cast these iconic actors? I mean, you switched obviously the gender for the Brad Pitt character, but also for, Bruce Willis is...
It was very hard to find our Cole. We saw a lot of people went down the road with a lot of people and never felt right. And then once Nikita ended, we had jumped off the last season of Nikita. After we had seen, God, I don't know, like 3 dozen guys, we were on the highway and we were like, what about Aaron Stanford? And we were like, do you think he would do it? Yeah. And we called him, and he called us. He's like, "Do you want me to play this?"
He's like, "I think we're reading for the wrong role."
I'm like, "No, we did. We do." And he came in, and he read with Amanda Scholl. He did a screen test. Within 10 seconds, we knew it was right. We looked across the room, and we were just like, "That's the show."
Yeah,
they're so good, and the chemistry is so great between them. It worked.
The thing about
very lucky.
The thing about Aaron that works is so amazingly well is that he's incredibly believable and empathetic. You're always with him, and he draws you into the story, and it's you care about what happens to him in every moment. It's a great ability that he brings to it.
What do you guys tell people to expect from the series that either they haven't seen before, which is a bit of a heavy lift, or yes, you've seen elements of this before, but we're doing such a cool and interesting take on it that you're really going to like what they have to say?
I think it's not too spoilery to say that I can't think of a season of television that is the puzzle that ours is, in which that by episode 2 you've set up an element that is part of a huge twist in episode 8 and 9 and 10.
Right.
This is so tricky. It's a very tricky question, but I don't think I've seen. In my mind, I can't remember a season of television with serialized time travel like this that has.
Yeah.
It's done, but it's very ambitious.
It's a different. It is a grittier, more character-based take on some of the things that maybe Doctor Who's touched on. But Doctor Who is always a procedural and a monster of the week, and we're not that. So this is a 13-episode tapestry that's one full story.
Yeah. Big novel.